Hello, my name's Tom Cahill. It's Sunday, the 31st of August 2014. This one is not going to take long. What it is I've done a few videos on the Woolwich Hoax. Um, I don't really want to go over all the things that other people have done. It's completely pointless. I think someone like Chris Bibby is a very good person to look up if you've got any doubt. You know, he's done an awful lot on it. A bit boring, he goes on a bit, but he's very comprehensive. If you soldier through any one of his articles, you'll get numerous things will flag up which clearly can't be right. And there's a few of them. There's lots of them on his site. I wouldn't really like to pick one out, but there's a few good ones. Also, if you put in Chris Bivvy Woolwich into a search engine, you'd probably get some good. You'd probably get, the best ones would pop up to the top because they've been looked at most. Right, this is it. The Tigra smashed around a lamppost. Right. The problem with the Tigra being smashed around a lamppost is because we know it's a hoax, and it'd be logistically pretty much nigh on impossible to conceive actually smashing the Tigra up whilst you were closing the roads off for a very limited amount of time, and I can only imagine it would be a very limited amount of time. Even if you had like half an hour or an hour to do it, I still don't think it would be something you'd really want to get into doing. It'd be a bit too difficult. So I've come to the conclusion it would have to be lifted into place. Now, a lot of people have explained that the big white van that was there looks like a props van that actors use when they go out on go out and do like films, and they do filming up like out in the street or whatever, which I think is a very reasonable presumption. But I used to think, well, the Tigra could go in the back of that, and I think potentially it could, but then you'd have to kind of roll it into position because it's all smashed up. I doubt you could actually. Maybe you could just wheel it into position, but it'd be difficult. You'd probably be easier putting on a kind of trolley and putting it into position. But still, then it'd be a bit of a logistical pain because it would take a little while. I think if you look at critical path analysis, the kind of mathematical term, also used in construction, which again is very significant because I've linked TFL to this, and this is kind of UK construction terminology, even though it's not derived from construction. Messing around with that car will be a real fucker. That would be one of the things that you'd have to do before everything else. You can't be fucking around with that car, lifting it into place with other people around. And if you have to wheel it about, it could be a real pain. So that was something that stuck in my mind. I was thinking, how would you do that? How would you do it? Even if you had a little team of like 6 or 7 people and they all sort of ran along and sort of holding onto it, pushing it into place, undoing the windows, doing the windows back up again because you probably hold onto the windows. There's all sorts of different things. It's not something you'd want to be getting into, and also you could have a disaster. Like you could end up something could go wrong. There's too many things could go wrong. I don't know what, but it's a kind of operation in a sequence of operations which would be a right pain. You want to avoid it. Now there's another thing. Line of sight, points of view. There's some blocks of flats near, and also there's some shops on some of the pictures, but the shops are quite far away. And as you all know, and again, got to credit this to Chris Bivvy, or his site at least, sometimes on some of the videos the shops have chamfer doors that are shut, and sometimes they're not shut, and that's a bit of effort doing that. So it looks like it's been filmed twice potentially, or filmed at another time. Certain bits have been filmed at another time. I don't really know, but it looks like, I don't think a shop would have been shut and then open again. It doesn't make sense. But on its own, it's not a smoking gun, but it doesn't make sense. It's significant contributory evidence to things not being as we've been told. But the point is, a line of sight from the flats. Flats in London often have like quite a bit of like greenery around them. They have the places where you stick the bins. The bins will have like a wall around them often. Then you'll have like some grass and some trees. That's the standard. In London, they do quite a nice job around flats. They do put a bit of effort in. So you've got actually quite a long line of sight away from the Woolwich incident. And if you'll know, there's a guy called Morris 808, I believe. And he said he spoke to this guy. He didn't want to be on camera, I don't think. And he said to him, well, what do you think about this thing? And he said, oh, well, I saw it out of my flat window, or something along those lines. He saw things to do with the hoax as it was happening. And the guy was convinced he was dead. And he said, well, I don't think it happened the way they said. And this guy was quite shocked. And it seemed that the guy just believed it because he saw it. But even though it didn't make sense, like not enough blood, stuff like that. Well, there wasn't any blood, was there? A white t-shirt, it's meant to have his head chopped off and no blood on it. Absolutely ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. It's actually hilarious. So you've got blocks of flats, you've got shops. Now the shops was a logistical problem for me because I was thinking, how would they keep the people who were like living above the shops out of eyeshot? Now I've got no answer to that. And maybe the answer is they just counted on them not knowing, and they just thought we might have to bump a couple of them off if they do catch on. I don't know. Or they're too far away to be credible witnesses. We've got all these people who are nearer. Thing is, on the other side of the road, there's a barracks. The barracks, right, it's a great big massive really high wall, completely obscures view of everything. So that will be an ideal place to do something like this if you're going to close the road off, because you've got an absolute, like a solid brick wall that's really high, that it's like a prison wall. No one will be able to see over the top of it. Yeah, so it's an ideal place to do it because of that. And this is the thing, like with a lot of these things, you think of one thing and another thing comes into your mind. I'll go back to the Tigra. How do you get that smashed up Tigra into position? I'll tell you what you do. You get a crane and you put it over the wall and drop it in. That's how you do it. Because I was thinking the only other way they could do it in a logically really sound way would be to get like a crane, like on the back of a truck or something, and pick it up and put it down. But of course then you'd have to drive a crane truck off. And a lot of people would probably notice if the road's just closed off for a second, but you've got a crane truck waiting there, people might think, well, what's going on there? So I think, right, this is just this could be wrong, but this is just two bits of thinking. Obviously they chose that area because it's very cut off. There's a lot of people having a close line of sight will be very minimal. You could control that set very easily. It'll be interesting to see when people find out, there will eventually be people saying, yeah, the road was closed off, it's closed off for a little bit. That will come up. But this is the really important thing. The Tigra, getting the Tigra into position, could have been in the back of the van, would have been a bit of a pain to do that. I don't think they would have had the bottle to just drive the Tigra in on the back of a car that wasn't where it wasn't covered over and just put it in place. I don't think they would have had the bottle to do that. I think it would have been in the army barracks, and somewhere near there they would have just craned it over the wall. It could have even been in the block of flats, to be fair. It could have been in the block of flats somewhere, but I don't know the exact geography of it. But I believe there would have been a crane somewhere that would have lifted that into position. And I say that because it's too far-fetched to think that how else would you get it in position? I think it's very, very likely that happened. How they got round to doing that, I don't know, but it doesn't make sense that you'd well, put it this way, they haven't gone and just driven it into a lamppost and then got out and started killing anybody or pretended to kill somebody, and they haven't got a stuntman to do it and then get out, because there's no dents on the lamppost. The lamppost just completely looked like it never been hit by anything, and those lampposts are made to smash to pieces. Again, when you talk about the people in the flats who are watching, or one or two of them are watching, depending on what you did with the Tigra, it could have seemed very, very inert, like you could have even stuck a cover over it, put it into place. People wouldn't really notice. If you're in a block of flats, you see loads of things going on downstairs. There'd be very few people, I think, who would actually be watching to see what was happening. And the other thing you've got to remember, there could have been people on the ground watching the people in the flats to see who was looking out the window and stuff like that. That could have even been involved. Do you know that could have been involved as well? So they could have stopped doing things or kind of changed the plan drastically, because of course there's no actual need for a Tigra in the whole plan. They could have just said they went up and hacked his head off and they had the knives up their coats, couldn't they? It's not an actual essential part of the whole picture. And also you've got to remember that if you see the pictures that they said of the people in the petrol station cameras, like Chris Bibby says, are meant to pick up number plates. That's the whole point of them. And they've deliberately obscured the number plate. And that particular one, you can't see any. The black man just looks like a black shadow, and that's not because he's a black man. It's because I would look like a black shadow on the angle on the sort of lighting on this photo. And they're kind of using that as evidence that it must be them. And of course, on one of the pictures, it's got like a back window wiper, and on one of the other ones it hasn't. I forget which way around it goes, but you see the one that they used in the hoax did have one or didn't have one, and the petrol station one did have one or didn't have one. I forget which way around it goes. But anyway, hopefully this gives you something to think about, because as I said, I'm not comfortable with the whole idea of lifting it over the wall with a crane myself either. I still think that'd be difficult, but can't see any other way they'd do it. Okay, alright, thanks a lot. My name's Tom Carhill. I want to hear what you say.